very happy that you like Arati. Part of the favorite is the prasadam at the end. At the chanting. Okay. O Bhagavad Gita, by which Arjuna was illumined by Lord Krishna himself, and which was composed of 18 chapters within the Mahabharata by the ancient sage Vyasa. O Divine Mother, destroyer of rebirth, who showers the nectar of oneness upon us, O Bhagavad Gita, my affectionate mother, on thee I meditate. All the Upanishads are the cows. The milker is the cowherd boy, Krishna. Arjuna is the calf. People of purified intellect are the drinkers. The milk is the supreme nectar of the Gita. My salutations to the Lord, who is the source of supreme bliss, whose grace makes the mute eloquent and the crippled cross mountains. Hari Om Tat Sat. Okay. 5 and 6 in yoga meditation. So I'll read this translation first. And really this translation, this translation is including commentary. So generally speaking, Swami Satchidananda's translations are quite literal, but he will reword them in a way for the Western psyche. This one he changes some in order to improve the understanding of it. But we're going to work with the classical one. We'll read this one first. So this is the way he says it. Number 5, you can rise up through the efforts of your own mind, or in the same manner draw yourself down, for you are your own friend or enemy. And then number 6, as you gain control of your mind with the help of your higher self, then your mind and ego become your allies. But the uncontrolled mind behaves as an enemy. So, and I had shared, I think everyone heard, and whoever is able to join us online this morning after, that Swami Ramaswarupananda Ji Maharaj, who every day would have visitors and would be teaching Bhagavad Gita, his now famous Tea and Gita. Swamiji would make a point of always starting the teaching with these two. So, and I learned the lesson one day. It was the Sedona Yoga Fast, and I was to have a 1-hour session on the Bhagavad Gita, and I made the mistake of starting with chapter 1. So it just became a discussion about whether war was good or bad. And of course war is bad. So, yeah, the whole lesson was lost. And I heard Swamiji saying, I told you so. He never says it that way. He says, this is why we start with these two shlokas. Because of course the war is an inner war, it's not an outer war. And these two shlokas speak to the inner war and victory or defeat. The first one in particular. Let a man, so this is pretty literal, almost word for word. Let a man lift himself up by his own self alone. Let him not lower himself. For this self alone is the friend of oneself, and this self alone is the enemy of oneself. And then 6, the self is the friend of the self for him who has conquered himself by the self. But to the unconquered self, this self stands in the position of the enemy, like the external foe, or we could say as if as if the external foe. As if the external foe. So we can have some discussion about this. We'll read the commentary that Swami Venkatesh gives. Can I read one more time? Can we just be present with it? Yes. Yeah. And see, yay! Thank you. Just be present with it. Listen to it as deeply as you can and see how it resonates, see how you hear it. Let a man lift himself up by his own self alone. Let him not lower himself. For this self alone is the friend of oneself, and this self alone is the enemy of oneself. The self is the friend of the self for him who has conquered himself by the self. But to the unconquered self, this self stands in the position of the enemy, like the external foe. So here's the commentary that he shares with us. It says, how often do we blame our failures on others, on external conditions, and on the weather? Everyone is given what we call some blessings, some misfortune, and some good fortune, both. All these are mixed very nicely, he says. He adds there very nicely. They're mixed perfectly. It is not that some people are favored and others are not favored. Life does not know any distinction whatsoever. The real trouble lies within ourselves. Why do we want to look elsewhere for a solution? The wise man knows that his own impure mind is his worst enemy and the pure mind his best friend. Yet it is not as though these two are distinct and different. And this is very helpful, very important. It's not that these two selves are actually distinct and different. They're levels. He speaks to pure and impure. But you can't just banish your mind and say, dear mind, just get out of my life. Yeah. Right? Yes. So it is not as though these two, this one that is the worst enemy, the impure mind, and the one that is the best friend, the pure mind, it's not that they're actually two. They're not. And they're not distinct and different. You have experience with this. Because this lower nature has the ability to masquerade as the higher, how can you tell the difference? Mm-hmm. Huh. Yeah. So it's not that they're distinct and different. Here Krishna uses the same word self, and how many times did he use the word self?
Probably 6 or 7.
You want to count?
Yes.
In the first sloka, yeah. Here, Gopala, you count. Let a man lift himself by his own self alone. Let him not lower himself. For the self alone is the friend of oneself, and this self alone is the enemy of oneself. The self is the friend of the self for him who has conquered himself by the self. But to the unconquered self, this self stands in the position of the enemy, like the external foe. How many times?
13 times.
13 times. So 15 was very close, Kartikeya. Good job. Hence, Krishna uses the same word self, risking confusion, because it can be very confusing, in fact. Just as we have only one body with a head and limbs, even so we have an antakarana, or inner instrument, or subtle body, the mind, just one, which has its different aspects and functions, just as a single iron rod may be hot at the end close to the fire and cold at the end farthest from the fire. The same mind is pure and strong where it is turned towards the indwelling presence of God, and impure and weak where it is turned away from him and towards the world of sense experiences. Do we grasp what's being shared there? So there's an aspect of this mind that's turned outward. And there's an aspect of this mind that's turned inwards. So we can say from the study of the three bodies and the koshas, the five sheaths, that antakarana is the entirety of the mental instrument. So antakarana includes ego sense and intellect and the subconscious mind, manas. It includes all of those, right? It's really one instrument, but it has different aspects of it. And there are those that are closest to the fire and those that are further from the fire. And it's very practical. Does that make sense? So the fire being the Atman, the fire being the soul, or Brahman, that which is most pure. So the beginning of the manifestation of world, this entire world is in consciousness, so it's mind. It's all the greater antakarana, the greater. I don't know how to do that in terms of the cosmic mind, so we just say cosmic mind. Yeah. So, but even in cosmic mind, there is that which is closer to the source, and that which is further from the source, right? That which is close and looking in, and that which is far and looking out, as it were. This is what he's sharing. Can we relate to that? Is that? So in ourselves, same experience, right? So when there's an assertion inside to do something beneficial, it's coming from the mind. But what aspect of the mind? Is it coming from a pure aspect of the mind? Higher. And when there's an assertion to go get a drink, that's also coming from the same mind, correct?
Yes.
But that's the lower aspect of the mind, right? Oh, okay. But it's not two different minds. It can seem like it.
Yeah.
It can seem like it. Because the nature of the assertions are so much different. But it's one mind stuff. It's one antakarana, one instrument. One instrument. With many, in the same way that this entire society is all one.
Yeah.
With different aspects of the society. In the same way that this entire world is all one. The sun is all one. Right? The sun is all one. Different aspects, different rays, light, different colors of light, different, in the same way.
And when we're saying far and closer, are we talking about like a distance in the astral, or
it's not really distance, is it?
Right.
So his words pure and impure are helpful.
Yeah.
That which is closer to the light would be more pure. That which is more aware of the light would be more pure. But even more aware is a funny way to say. That which is in closer proximity.
Because how could a thought be aware of?
In closer proximity. Well, thoughts are imbued with awareness.
But they're not themselves aware of their
Correct.
origin.
Correct.
I guess is what I'm thinking.
But it's as if they are. It's as if they are. Yeah. So practically speaking, you could say yes, but so within you now, within the antakarana, within the entirety of the mental instrument, you can tap a thought which is beneficial. Can you bring a prayer? Yeah. From where does that come? And can you bring a very dense base thought? Can anger come and etc.? Where is that coming from? They're both coming from the same antakarana. Same mental instrument. Okay. This can be helpful.
So they're both coming from the ego, though. Technically, even a.
We're not talking. Yeah.
Or is that not?
You've inserted ego in this discussion in order to try to grasp something.
Antakarana.
Antakarana is the mental instrument.
Oh, okay.
You think of
Ahamkara is the
That's the ego.
ego. Antakarana, again, is the entire mental instrument, inclusive of ego, intellect, and manas, right? Okay.
It's the substance of the thought. Could it be said? It's the substance, like the higher or lower substance.
Purity is a good way to relate to it. Do we remember what purity means in a sense?
Yeah.
What is it? Hari, help us with purity. What purity means in spiritual sense. That which is pure is?
It's clean.
Yeah, clean. That which is unconditioned.
Unconditional.
Unconditioned, not subject to conditions. Okay, that which is pure. That which is clean. Okay. It hasn't had something added to it. It hasn't taken on some other nature.
Like an identity.
Pure.
Yeah.
Pure. So there are pure thoughts in this antakarana, yes?
Yeah.
Okay. And are there impure thoughts in the antakarana, in the instrument? Yeah. So he's trying to help see what's happening in this inner instrument. And also, of course, Lord Krishna is guiding us that within this is the salvation, and within this is the bondage.
Yeah.
Okay. So to continue, we'll pick up there. It says, just as we have one body with a head and limbs, so even so we have an antakarana, inner instrument, our subtle body, the mind. And here he's using the term mind for the entire instrument. Now, just to be clear, because oftentimes when we refer to mind, manas, specifically we're referring to just the reactive mind, the seat of the impressions and the tendencies. But here he's speaking of the entirety of the mind, including intellect, including the ego function. Okay. Which has its different aspects and functions. Just as a single iron rod may be hot at the end close to the fire and cold at the end farthest from the fire, the same mind is pure and strong where it is turned towards the indwelling presence of God, and impure and weak where it is turned away from him and towards the world of sense experiences. Now this is also an important teacher. Is she able to come today? Yeah, we're good here.
Okay.
But you haven't heard from Kalyani first?
Not yet.
Okay. Okay. Oh, thank you, dear. Okay, what he's sharing is very important because it speaks to salvation. It speaks to the way out of this. What is he saying? He's saying where it is turned, the mind is pure and strong, where it is turned towards the indwelling presence of God. So what does that mean?
It's like a self-reflective. You're thinking about the source of your mind rather than the objects.
It's almost
Just step back for 1 second, take a breath. Don't try to figure it out for a moment and then come back to it. Okay. Oh.
It's like the calm mind. The calm mind is
Well, it's actually very literal. It's very literal. He's not talking about an accident.
the purposely
Where the mind is turned towards, so there are many aspects of the mind, there are many levels of the mind.
Yes.
Where the mind is turned towards God, it is pure and clear. Where the mind is turned towards the senses and the sense objects, it is impure.
Searching, yes. No.
Do you understand that? Do you understand what's being shared? Is it resonating more now?
Yeah, I thought that's what I said, so that's why I'm confused.
Say it a different way then.
The mind that looks to its source, or the mind that looks to objects.
Very good.
Two.
Very good. Oh, okay. Beautiful. Yes, dear. Spider? God has given every man the free will to adjust the mind in such a way as to bring the whole of it close to God or to remain turned away from him. Right? So the entirety of this mind can either be turned outward towards the sense objects, or the entirety of the mind can be turned inward towards God.
Purposely.
Purposely.
Yes.
That's what free will is. When we want to know what is free will is the ability to choose what direction to orient the mind.
Oh. Now I get it. Yeah.
Right? Do I bring it towards the light? And how much of it do I bring towards the light?
Can you do both? Balance it out?
Because naturally the karmas, this experience is that a mixed experience. So what we find is within this antakarna, there is a part of it somewhere in here that's naturally turned towards God, turned towards the light. And there is a part of it that's also turned outward towards the senses. But what does that leave? What does that provide? That provides an experience which is a dichotomy, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It provides a broken experience. Yes? Because sometimes we're experiencing the highest in this inner instrument, and sometimes we're experiencing the lowest. Yes?
Yes.
And every moment we're choosing between these. But the free will allows us to turn it all the way, one way or the other.
So true.
And if we turn it all the way towards the sense objects, then our next birth will be a demonic birth.
Mm.
I mean, it will, because we're a walking demon now if we do that. Isn't that so, dear one? Right?
Yeah.
Do we see examples of that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if we turn it all the way towards God, then what? Then we're called a saint. But it's the same mind. It's not a different mind principle. It's not a different mind. The mind there and the mind of Adolf Hitler is not a different mind. One is turned outward towards the sense objects and towards gratification from the senses. The other is turned inward completely and given over to the light. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
And that potential exists for every single human being. That's what's being shared. So, and it's only through the choices that we make, only through our free will,
Yes.
do we choose one or the other, directionally. Do we choose one or the other? Yes, dear. Okay.
Does grace play a part in this?
Well, there's always grace. So yes, we can say through grace, I turned inward towards God. We could say something like that, or I turned myself towards God, or I surrendered myself through grace. We can say like this. Amazingly, it's the same grace through which we turn ourselves outward, though. Grace and free will are one. Inspiration is given. You know, here's an experience. Just and we'll bring our dear Yemi into the equation also. But here's an experience. Every experience, every day we have mixed experiences. Someone does something nice to us, someone does something not nice to us. It appears that way.
Yes.
Every day. Someone says some encouraging word and some other word seems not to be so encouraging. Every day or over some period of time, there are both of these, correct? And what happens in the mind? It's not random, it's your own choice. That's the thing. That's recognizing the power that you have, because within the mind, there will be the potential to find a voice, if we can tune to it, that will tend to look at everything as grace, everything that happened during the day as grace. So here in ashram, We have everyone sitting in satsang, but someone might not come for whatever reason. Someone might not come. And then we might have in the morning some propensity, some feeling, I don't feel very good this morning. I don't think I'm going to be able to come. That could be a voice that comes within the inner realm. And it could seek a story about why it's not going to come. Such and such didn't come, so therefore it's no big deal if I don't come. Right? Such and such didn't come. But at the same time, such and such else did come and had terrible adversity, but did come anyway. And how is it that there's a choice made to hear one story or the other? So you can have several people doing things that are good and one person doing something that's bad. And within this mind can be an assertion, I'm going to do what's bad because so-and-so is doing it. But within the same mind can be an assertion that says, I'm going to do what's good because this person is dealing with difficulty and they inspire me. Yummy, for example, is inspiring, right? But within Yummy is both the person who asserts, we're not going to do this, we're not going to tell our story, we're not.
Yes,
I'm not worth it. And no, I can't be bothered with this and all of this. Within her, she's dealing with that stuff, so it's there. But also there's the source of inspiration. And so we're all dealing with the same stuff, but through free will, she's choosing to listen to one of the voices and not the other. She's choosing to turn towards the highest. So in other words, everybody will have experiences that will give us an excuse to stay in bed or not to do what's beneficial. Everybody will have those. And everyone will also have experiences that will give us a reason to get out of bed in order to support others. Everyone will have both of these. Every single person will have both of these. So through grace, we get to choose. Through grace, we get to choose. Through grace, we get to learn. We're able to learn. We're able to learn what happens, what experiences come based upon the choices that we make and such. Through grace, the teaching is offered. Through grace, we can turn away from it if we choose.
Yeah. Oh.
So grace is here. Grace inspires us. Grace gives us the opportunity to choose. So God has given every man the free will to adjust the mind in such a way as to bring the whole of it close to God, or to remain turned away from him. The worldly man chooses the latter alternative, and thus his own mind becomes his worst enemy, tormenting him with desires and cravings, love and hatred, likes and dislikes. In the case of the wise man, however, the whole mind is close to God and is therefore luminous with the knowledge of the indwelling presence everywhere. So this is the difference. All of us have had the experience of what seem like enemies outside, but there is no enemy outside. There is no enemy outside. There has never been an enemy outside. The idea that there is an enemy outside is our enemy.
Just the thought. Yeah.
These people did this terrible thing to me. This is what, by the way, our dear Yummy is waking up to, And it's a beautiful awakening. Is this that happened? Oh my God, it was grace. That was the conversation that we had in Phoenix. She asked the question, is it really grace? Yeah. There's no outer enemy. So, and we love to tell ourselves when we're caught up in the drama of this world, we love to tell ourselves, I would do that, but so-and-so, or this happened, or I have a cold, or I have this, or I have that, or, but that's that aspect that's still turned out that's going to say that. And if we turn to that and choose that, then we'd lose our momentum, right? We get caught up again. But if we take the opportunity and choose towards that pure voice inside, that will say, it's okay. Everything's provided. What's needed will be there. You'll be cared for. You're not alone. Right? That's there too, isn't it? Yeah. Well, so I can read them one more time. Yes, here. Do you want one of these? Okay, you can have one of these. Do we have a candy fix after Halloween? Yes.
She already had her Skittles over
There is a little bit of sugar in there, so enjoy. Okay, one more time. Let a man lift himself up by his own self alone. So this is meaning the higher self, but it's also within us. It's not something outside of us. Let a man lift himself up by his own self alone. Let him not lower himself. For this self alone is the friend of oneself, and the self alone is the enemy of oneself. The self is the friend of the self for him who has conquered himself by the self, but to the unconquered self, this self stands in the position of the enemy, like the external foe, or as if the external foe. So Ganesha is also inside. Okay, any other comment or question on today?
The iron rod is a great example. In the one end is the light, our inner light, the Atman, and the other end is the base. Is that correct?
The other end is the impure.
Yeah.
The self-centered desires like that, self-centered motivations, etc. Okay.
I found there was one instance where I did find an enemy that was very unforgivable. When I was at the yoga farm, when we were building those cabins, and there was beautiful blue skies every day when I first got there. But then all of a sudden, those chemtrails started going.
Yeah.
And then they made the sky all silvery haze, and you didn't know what you're breathing and every day. And it wasn't every single day, but it was a lot of days, and it just ruined the sky. And I was like, and I couldn't stop thinking about it because every day I was staring at it.
So was it that disturbed you, or was that you couldn't stop thinking about it that disturbed you?
Because I didn't know what they're putting.
That's an idea. If you check it, and if you use your yoga teachings, you see very quickly, Kartikeya. Mm-hmm. It was that you couldn't stop thinking about it is what disturbed you.
It was very disturbing, yeah.
If you close your eyes, then that isn't disturbing you any longer.
Yeah.
But the thoughts about it are.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's it. You can't control your outer surroundings.
Yeah.
That was the discussion or gathering on Sunday. Whoever had seen that talk, it's the same discussion. Mm-hmm. The outer surroundings provided to you will be mixed. Mm-hmm. And as long as you prefer the ones that you say are good, and build your life around an expectation of those, and you avoid or try to avoid those that you say I don't like or are bad, then there is no end to this tossing. That's the thing. So that's Raga Dvesha. That's in the book. That's Raga Dvesha. So if you're willing to, now, would you please stand up and go over and read our...
Yeah.
That'll help us to close this morning. Listen carefully to the words as you repeat them, Kartikeya.
Okay. This is practical wisdom. See nothing. Look at nothing but your goal ever shining before you. The things that happen to us do not matter. What we become through them does. Each day, accept everything as coming from God. At night, give everything back into His hands. I kept thinking I was going to say a chemtrail. Yeah.
See? But it's not the thing that happens to you that makes you.
Yeah.
It's what you become
Because, yeah.
through it. Not because of it. It's the choices that you make, dear.
Yeah.
It's the choices that you make.
Yeah, that's awesome.
If you allow yourself to see the hand, the one hand,
Yeah.
offering both and giving you the opportunity.
Yeah.
Paramahansa Yogananda used to say, when people would ask, why is there this in the world? His answer, why is there light and why is there dark?
Yeah.
Says, so that you can choose, my dear, so that you can choose.
It's always balanced.
So that you can choose. There doesn't... Okay. Om Namah Shivaya.
What is it? What is dark? What is light? That's always the balance.
In terms of the experience itself, duality.
Yeah.
In terms of the choices that you make, not necessary.
Right, yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, let's close with final prayers and arati. Wait, where's Fio? She wanted the arati. Page 174.
When she hears it.
Yeah, it's school time though for her. She's preparing. Om. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanan Ritor Mukshiyamam Ritata Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanan Ritor Mukshiyamam Ritata Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanan Ritor Mukshiyamam Ritata Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Shantu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashanto Makashit Lukabhag Bhave Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamasoma Jyotir Ramaya Mritor Mahamritam Gamaya Om Purnamida Purnamidam Purnamudashate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. O adorable Lord of mercy and love, salutations and prostrations unto Thee. Thou art omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. Thou art Satchidananda. Thou art existence, knowledge, and bliss absolute. Thou art the indweller of all beings. Grant us an understanding heart, equal vision, balanced mind, faith, devotion, and wisdom. Grant us inner spiritual strength to resist temptation and to control the mind. Free us from egoism, lust, anger, greed, hatred, and jealousy. Fill our hearts with divine virtues. Let us behold Thee in all these names and forms. Let us serve Thee in all these names and forms. Let us ever remember Thee. Let us ever sing thy glories. Let thy name be ever on our lips. Let us abide in thee forever and ever. And below Sakuru Shivananda Maharaj Ki, and for all the saints and sages of all traditions.